Alright, what is up my homies, and welcome today to Gray Gaming. Today on another episode of Settlement Builds for Noobs, we are back at Starlight Drive-in. So if you've been watching our latest series on the Commonwealth Contractor, you've probably been aware of the fact that we have been seriously renovating our Starlight Drive-in Tower Build. So I felt it was only right that we take our time and do a settlement walkthrough of our newly renovated Starlight Drive-in Tower. So without any further ado, let's go ahead and jump right in. Alright, so as is usual, we'll go ahead and walk around the outside of the settlement, and then we'll take a look at the tower itself. So here in this little courtyard area, we do have our caravan trading post, and right now we have Trash Can Carla and Doc Weathers stationed here. We also have one provisioner. I actually removed most of the provisioners who come directly to the settlement and redirected them to Grey Garden. So now there are only 3 provisioners who actually arrive here, which really cuts down on the number of NPCs and Brahmin that have to be animated, which did a lot to increase our frame rate. Even though it only increased by a very small amount, it's still quite noticeable. So here in the hotel, we do have our normal setup here. So nothing has changed since our Starlight Revisited video that I posted, I think back in June. So we do have a number of beds. This is a hotel, so pretty much any caravaner who wants to come stay can. We do have this little bar area, and we do have some stools posted around outside, as well as an eatatronic for people who just want to purchase some food and be done with it, who don't want to actually go into the tower. And that's pretty much it for the projector house. I mean, we do have this massive projector. I wish you could do something with it or get it to actuate and actually drop down where it can actually work, but it doesn't. Taking a step out, we get to see kind of just what's on the roof, which isn't much, just a bunch of turrets. Nothing fancy, but it does make sure that even the people who stay in our hotel are more than adequately defended in the event of a combat situation. So stepping around here to the side, we have our many turrets. We actually removed a fair number of them during our renovation, which also reduces the number of objects that are moving that have to be animated at any given time, which also slightly improved the performance, but not nearly as much as I had hoped. Stepping around to the side here, we do have our Brahmin paddock. So all of our Brahmin who live at this settlement spawn in here and will stay here. So we do have a number of feeders set up so that they will all stay nearby. And we've got this hog panel fence that just shuts, and they are pretty much just as well protected as anyone else at this settlement. So our screen house and all of the side offices and storage rooms are pretty much unusable. I did kind of glitch them into the wall here a little bit using just standard flooring and snapping. I didn't go with a full-on rug glitch. But honestly, I don't use these for anything, as they're all the way on the outermost perimeter of the settlement, so they're kind of difficult to keep track of what's going on inside them. And that's pretty much it for the perimeter of the settlement. We just have a nice solid concrete wall pretty much all the way across, with the exception of our 2 unscrappable structures, plus this little shack that houses the workshop. And so with that, we're ready to jump right into our newly renovated Starlight Drive-in Tower. So over here on the right, we do have our market. So our market provides all the same amenities as before. So we've got Trader Riley, who's actually working here now. So whatever I did during the remodel seems to have fixed her behavior, where before she just hung out farming all day. We also have Anne Hargrave selling clothing, Smiling Larry on weapons, and the Brotherhood Scribe on armor. We also have our barber shop here in the commissary, so that this is kind of now a one-stop shop for anyone visiting the settlement. I'm pretty happy with how that turned out. As always, we do have our controlled access using a powered door, so we can completely lock this tower down if we need to by simply throwing a switch. There is no switch on the outside, so this is effectively a lockdown measure. Taking a stroll across the hall, we have our Starlight Cafe, and this is pretty much the same amenities as before, we just got a little fancier. So I did go with some Creation Club booths, which are Nuka-Cola themed, but there is a diner booth available in the main game. It's just a little rattier in appearance. So you can replicate this appearance, it might not just be quite as fancy. We also threw some signage around, so if you remember my earlier builds at this tower, you would know this was very minimalist. There was almost no decoration anywhere, and I have since kind of changed my style a little bit, so there is quite a bit of signage available. We do have our bar seating here kind of off in the middle, and we do have our stainless steel tables for people who prefer table rather than booth seating. We also have our drink station here available with pretty much all the amenities I give my usual cafeterias. So we do have an ice machine and drink dispenser. We also have the Vault 88 soda machine. We also have a Nuka-Cola mixing machine and a garbage can for people to throw their stuff when they're done. We've also got Ron Staples here manning the bar. So this is a tier 4 bar setup. And this took a little bit of work, but I was able to get one of these counter spaces to clip through this wall so that that little rounded piece at the end doesn't show through. But this allows us to put things like cash registers and tabletop decorations, because the store counter itself doesn't actually allow you to place anything on top of it. So this kind of serves as an extension of the sales counter, and it works pretty decently. We've also got our usual kitchen amenities. So we've got a tray for dirty dishes, a sink to wash them in, a cooking station, and this is a Creation Club add-in, the refrigerator. It looks like there's actually food decorated in it. There is kind of an equivalent within the vanilla game, which is the ice machine. So you can put an ice machine there and basically accomplish the same task. This just gives it a little bit more of a cosmetic flair. As we had before the remodel, we do have some private dining rooms. So if you're looking for a private dinner or you're looking for a party room, then you do have that option back in here. And that is pretty much it for our Starlight Cafe. Let's go ahead and keep going with our main deck here. So heading down the hallway here, the workshop and about half of the cafe has now been converted to our brig facility. So now our chief of security sits down here, and we do have the same basic setup that we had when it was all the way up on our government services deck. So the government services deck is now gone if you have not been watching the Commonwealth Contractor series. So this is all set up pretty much the exact same way. We've got our security officers' desks, so they are supposed to sit here most of the time. We also have a couple pillories for minor offenses, and we do have 2 jail cells with pretty much your normal jail cell amenities. These are quite a bit larger than they need to be, so I could throw in an additional set of beds. But honestly, I'm not planning on there being too much of a bad element here. So that is our jail facility. So moving across the hallway, we have our overseer's office. So now people can come straight into the tower to meet with the overseer instead of having to go all the way up through the tower. So we no longer have to grant visitors to the tower full access. We can just grant them access to the main deck, and they can come in here and have an audience with the overseer. So they've got their Vault Tech management system and their overseer's desk, as well as some basic decoration along the walls. I could probably stand to throw in a few potted plants. I have more than enough stored from the remodel. So moving over here, we also relocated the classroom. And so by changing up the style of desk, I went with a smaller desk that is actually snappable. So we were able to save quite a bit of room from our old classroom that was probably 4 times this size, but only provided 25% more seating. So we were able to actually do a pretty decent job with the amount of space that I had left down here by just moving our classroom down here. So we can still support a class size of 12 people, and with a population settlement population, I don't know why that came out backwards, of only 24, That means that this classroom should be more than sufficient for any number of children that we have, especially right now since we only have one child living at this settlement, and it is Sean. Taking a step over here, we also relocated the nursery from the government services deck, which pretty much is our entire government services deck located down here on the main deck now. So we were able to do a pretty good job. Most of the items in here are available in vanilla game. The only things that aren't are these Nuka-Cola rugs. Everything else is vanilla. So if you want to replicate this, you can. The only thing I don't like about the cribs is the fact that the wood slats are broken out and nobody bothered to put them back in. So it is a bit problematic, but this is the only crib object in the vanilla game. So that's what we had to work with. But this is our nursery, complete with changing table, a TV for when the nursery attendant needs a break, and another couch for people who want to come in and visit their kids during their lunch break or something. It is also conveniently located right here next to the classroom, so if we do end up with multi-child households, then it's kind of a one-stop shop to take your older kids to school and your younger children to the nursery. So taking a step down to our basement level, we have quite a bit of changes from our last video down here. We do have our 4 fusion reactors. I've already beat to death my reasons for using 4 of these instead of one giant Vault-Tec reactor, so I won't go into that. But here we do have our community workshop. So our community workshop is the exact same set of crafting stations that we had at the old one that was up on the main deck. It's just a lot more at home down here in a more industrialized setting. So we do have the ability to work on weapons, chemistry station, armor, and power armor all down here. So anyone who works at the settlement can come down here and craft whatever they want. We do have a industrial water purifier that has been sunk into the ground. I don't really like having to resort to glitches or console commands to place stuff. But because my tower was pre-existing, I couldn't place a new industrial water purifier here before I was using water pumps. And my options were either to completely scrap my tower and start building from scratch, or to resort to console commands. So I ended up resorting to console commands to place it and sink it down into the ground where it's not clipping through the first deck. So, not proud of it, but it was my only option. Apparently, my kid is not worried about that water. All right, so here we have our kennel. So all of our various breeds of dogs that we maintain here, we've got a golden retriever, a black lab, a Rottweiler, a pit bull. We even have a wolf. I think Mishka was hanging out over here. Yeah, we got a wolf. So pretty much a few Creation Club breeds, but every breed available in the vanilla game as well. So I don't have a mutant hound just because every time I go there, Erickson only has a glowing hound and they give off radiation, which will trigger combat events if someone steps too close to them. So I don't really want to have that happen. All right, so stepping in here, we have relocated our indoor shooting range to the basement deck where everything is already noisy. So a lot of the things I wanted to do with our indoor shooting range, I actually did accomplish down here. So I wanted to put up some display cases with weapons that I unfortunately didn't have the option to do at my old build because my frame rate was getting so bad. But now that we've done quite a bit of cleanup work, I can get away with just a few display cases with various weapons mounted to them. We also have a few benches for people to lay their weapons and stage things like ammunition and such. And we did have to get rid of one of our 5 shooting lanes. So this is just a 4-lane indoor shooting range. We also got rid of a fair number of targets because of how cramped it was getting. So instead, I went with each of these lanes being set up for shooting at different distances. So if you wanted to play around with close range shooting, you choose your first lane, and then as you get better or want to progressively move up to further distances, then you just transition to different lanes. And if you're shooting rifles, then all of them are set up for shooting at, I think that is supposed to be like 30 yards or something. So we are set up with mannequins at the far end, as well as posters along the back wall for people who want to practice their longer range shooting at each of these lanes. So we do have a fair number of different objects and ranges that we can select. Still, we're just slightly more limited. And honestly, I think I actually like this arrangement better than I did the shooting range that was up at our second recreation deck. And so that's pretty much it for our basement. So we've gotten through our utility and shooting range deck. We've also gotten through our main deck. So now let's go ahead and take a step up to our residence deck. So our residence deck hasn't changed much, but I'll go ahead and do a full walkthrough of it anyway. So along this corridor, we have a number of double room accommodations. So if you're familiar with my builds by now, you probably know what my accommodations are. This settlement, since it is kind of my headcanon capital, is a little bit nicer. So all of my settlers who live here get a bed, they get a personal locker, a personal dresser, and they share a couch with an ottoman. So this is a little bit fancier than my normal accommodation, which is just a bed and a trunk for people to keep their stuff. But having all these containers actually kind of provides you an in-universe explanation of why there isn't just junk and garbage laying around the entire settlement. So this provides a much cleaner, much more minimalistic view of your settlement and doesn't involve you having to just place junk, doesn't require you to have mods set up so that you can place shelves full of stuff. This just means people keep their things in their lockers and their dressers instead. So it's great for those purists out there who still exist. There's like 8 of us who still insist on not playing with mods. And so this entire hallway, left and right, is pretty much identical. So we won't go into every single one of these rooms. Moving over to this corridor, however, we do have our lavatories. So there are 5 lavatories here for a settlement of 24, which isn't a terrible ratio. And the lavatories are very basic. They are just a toilet and a sink. I would like to have a mirror, but they don't exist in the vanilla game. And so far, I haven't found any Creation Club add-ins that have a mirror. If you know of any, definitely let me know. I don't normally purchase Creation Club content. I wait for it to go on sale. So pretty much all of the Creation Club stuff you've seen so far is all things that I acquired for free. And so you can see there is a slight reduction in our frame rate here just because of the sheer number of objects and doors, which are movable objects as well. So we are seeing a bit of a reduction, but it's not nearly as bad as it was before. So this entire side of the corridor is single person accommodations that were pre-existing before our renovation. So this is very similar to what you have in the 2-person accommodations, but these are more private because they're just a single bed. And instead of a full couch, these just get a recliner with an ottoman. So this is where I put a lot of my VIPs, all of those tier 4 settlers like Anne Hargraves, Trader Riley, Doc Anderson, etc. So all those people live here on this deck. And these lavatories actually used to be quite a bit larger because they used to contain bathtubs and such. I've since removed the bathtubs, and so that allowed me to shrink up all of these and make room for 5 more settler accommodations, which was nice because I was kind of at my population cap with this deck before. So these are much smaller. These are kind of the headcanon story, is that these are for new arrivals who haven't yet earned those higher position or more in demand living quarters. So these do still have a locker, a dresser, and a bed, but because these only take up 1 floor square, there is not enough room for a recliner, and these are pretty cramped as well. So we do end up with much smaller accommodations, but they're no less luxurious than the ones that have that little extra bit of space. And so there are additional 5 of them that were added in our renovation. And so I really don't like these long panel lights because they do tend to become very obvious when you're not quite centered, but I had a ton of them left over and I really didn't want to waste lots of glass and copper by just scrapping these and building new ones. So I reused where possible. So you do end up with these slight variations in the lighting where they're definitely off center. And so that is it for our residence deck. Moving up to our health and wellness deck, the clinic looks quite a bit different from how it did before. So we do have Doc Anderson front and center here at the front of our clinic before she was all the way in the back. And we do have our sitting area right out here where Doc Anderson is. We also have some Vault Tech posters related to health and wellness here as well. We also have kind of this ratty old drug sign. I pretty much put these at all of my clinics now just because it gives a little bit more decoration. So now, if you need to see the doctor, you can pretty much walk right up to her and she can triage the more important stuff. So if she has two people walk in, one of them's bleeding and the other one's just here for a checkup, she can instantly triage. Whereas before, the sitting room was completely out of her line of sight. So this gives us a much more in-universe friendly type of clinic. We also moved our hallway to the middle instead of the side. So this means that we have slightly smaller procedure rooms like the Phoraptor room here, which is still way larger than we need it to be for eye exams. But we are also able to add in things like Doc Anderson's personal office. So she has a desk here for writing papers, for documenting cases. She also has a personal terminal and a connection to a medical database. So the in-universe explanation is that there's some sort of storage capacity mainframe in all of these equipment racks. And she also has a chemistry station for her to be able to whip up some chems as she needs them. So she did not have that before. We do have the other two procedure rooms, like a facial surgeon and the decontamination room. The facial surgeon, we actually have someone working here now. I was able to recruit a few extra people to this settlement, so that's nice. We also have something that we were actually missing quite a bit at the old one, and that is a wardroom. So we actually have a place for our people to convalesce at while they are recovering under the supervision of a medical professional. So the wardroom has pretty much everything you would need. You have some beds, you have a couch for people to be able to sit at if they're tired of laying down. We also have a lavatory so they don't have to go all the way down to the residence deck and take those stairs. They can come right here and do their business. We also have a quarantine area. So this is pretty much the exact same accommodations, but the ability to seal people in. So if we need to separate people from the general population for any reason, we can quarantine them here, and they still have beds, they still have a couch, they still have a private lavatory. So if there's some sort of illness that Doc Anderson cannot identify and she thinks it might be contagious, she can assign them temporarily to this quarantine area so she can observe them and hopefully be able to treat them. So the clinic area has had quite a bit of reworking, and I'm fairly happy with how it turned out. Stepping across the health and wellness deck from the clinic to the gym has also seen quite a bit of reworking. So we did kind of move around a lot of the exercise equipment. So now the main deck is just for all these pommel horses. All of the weight benches have moved up to the second deck of the gym. But the biggest change is the relocation of the showers and shifting from a communal style shower to these personal private showers. So we do have a changing room with a bench and a locker, and we do have these private showers, so you don't have to worry about losing your modesty here in the Commonwealth. So we are kind of rebuilding a little bit. So we do have all of these showers ready to go. We also were able to shift over our basketball court to allow courtside seating. So before, our seating was all at the end of the court. So you didn't have the option for courtside seating. And we also didn't have this option to view from the second deck. So our basketball court here is actually quite a bit better than the one that I built at Nordhagen Beach, which is the one I usually lament during these walkthroughs that is the better of them. So I think I was actually able to make the best basketball court I've constructed so far here. We did go with these street lamps to light the court, mostly because these give off the most amount of light. And when you're dealing with a 2-story tall structure, these lights won't actually project all the way to the floor. They just get rid of the shadows in the ceiling. So you still see shadows on the floor a little bit, but these get rid of the most and provide the most lighting for what you need. So even though it doesn't make too much sense to have street lamps in your basketball court, they're kind of the best source of lighting I was able to find to get rid of most of the darkness in the court. So you do see here, we got a little kitty there. We have cat bowls stashed all over the settlement, so there's lots and lots of cats, which provide additional happiness to our settlers. And so here you see our weight room. We do have all these wires which power our showers. So the showers are powered objects. They are technically decontamination stations, but I tend to use them as showers for in-universe explanation. We also have these power bikes which aren't hooked to the power grid just because you have to actually assign settlers to them. So they're more here just for aesthetic purposes as exercise bikes. So if you wanted to exercise while you watch the game, you now have that option. And so that is it for the health and wellness deck. I am quite happy with how this turned out as well. Pretty much every area of the tower that we renovated, I feel as if I was able to make an improvement. I don't feel like I got into anything that I ended up over my head in. And so pretty much everything was an improvement wherever I did work on it. If you're enjoying the video so far, it would mean a lot to me if you would target that like button in VATS and sink some action points into it. If you want to see more content like this as soon as it's released, feel free to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you can get a notification every time I upload new content. We have a Patreon that nobody uses, but it's there if you're interested. And with all that out of the way, let's go ahead and jump right back into the video you actually came here for. So here on our recreation deck, we do have our power armor display deck. So we have 16 suits of power armor on display. We have 10 suits of XO1 and 6 suits of T60. So before these were 4 separate catwalks, and now we were actually able to combine and provide a wraparound deck. So we can actually completely circumnavigate the settlement, except for where the power armor displays get in the way. And so now we no longer have to worry about having to enter from a specific direction. Now our main entrance or any of our secondary entrances can get us where we need to go. Oops, I think I went one too far. Nope, I didn't. Okay. So that is our power armor display deck. So it was quite a bit of work just because of all the power I had to reroute because of it. But if you're building this from scratch, it's very easy to do rather than having to repair. So I rather like how that turned out. So stepping into our arcade has seen a pretty significant remodel, even though we really didn't add anything additional when it comes to recreational stuff. We did take our card tables from our lounge and place them here. So this is now kind of more of a casino. So we've got our pool, we've got our card tables, we have our arcade stations and our slot machines. So the arcade stations are Creation Club, but they do the exact same thing as the Vault 88 slot machines. So if you wanted, you could just build a longer row of slot machines and accomplish the exact same task. We also have some of these Nuka World arcade equipment. So we do have the atomic roller balls and the Wakakami. These are the only 2 objects that will fit within a single floor. So if this was a 2-story tall arcade, I could fit things like the hoop shot, and I think I could also fit the Nuka Blaster stuff. So the water gun race. I don't even remember what that's called, but you could fit that in a 2-story structure as well, I believe. So for the most part though, everything else is pretty much the same. We have a little bit additional decoration. Some of it is Creation Club, but the vast majority of it is vanilla. And we do have a dance floor here. So again, kind of put some rugs from the Creation Club down and these nice spinning disco balls. So we do have a dedicated dance floor now that no longer has a bunch of wires clipping underneath, because that was where our showers used to be, was right in the middle of the dance floor. So this is a little bit better. We do have our fully restored Juke and Jive. And my favorite part of this remodel was doing the cycling lights. So being able to add some of this mood lighting in really changed the aesthetic in here. It's no longer just kind of this dark place where people go to hang out. Now you actually have kind of this bright lighting, and I really love how that turned out. I first experimented with that at my Arcadia National Park Visitor Center, and here it just turned out just as well, if not better. So stepping into our lounge, we did relocate our lounge down here to the recreation deck. And it's quite a bit smaller than what we had before, but really it's no less comfortable. We still have various styles of seating and couches. We still have a few radios stashed about for people who want to listen to music. We still have a variety of potted plants about. So we do have the palms. We do have this, I guess it's an agave or something. We have the experimental plant, which is Creation Club. So I call out Creation Club wherever it is so people don't freak out and go, where is it? It's not in my inventory. So there is some Creation Club stuff around, kind of like this, whatever you call these plants. But these ones are vanilla, the agave and the palm fronds. So we also have kind of this little meeting area set aside for people who might want to have small meetings, book clubs, AA meetings, whatever. So all of that here in our lounge area. And of course, we do have a door direct to the catwalks for anyone who wants to just come out and look out over the Commonwealth can. So I really like how the lounge turned out. Even though this is a lot smaller than what we used to have, it's honestly just as good. All right. And so that is it for our recreation deck. Now we're going to go ahead and take a step up to the Overseer Suite. So you notice we're jumping straight from recreation to the Overseer. So before, we had two decks in between. We had a second recreation deck where we had the lounge and the shooting range, two things that do not go next to each other. And we also above that had our government services deck. So you'll notice I've been calling out these names as I've been going. Those have all been relocated. So I was actually able to completely remove 2 whole floors from this build by doing a lot of this consolidation work. So even though we have been adding a lot of decoration like various clocks and garbage cans and lighting and such, we have still removed hundreds of unnecessary objects and a lot of negative floor space as part of this remodel. So stepping up here to the Overseer Suite, we have a powered door which uses an XOR logic gate, so we can actually open and close this from either direction. So the XOR logic gate operates on a principle where as long as it has one power source, then it will provide positive power. So the black, for some reason, is really glitching out here. This door is connected directly to the black, so you connect 2 separate power sources to the red, and if you switch them, as long as one of those switches is set to the on position, then it will provide power to the black field, which will open the door. So if this one is on and this one is on, then that is not one power source. So the XOR will only function if there is one. So it's not greater than or less than 1. So you have to cut power on at least one side, but only one side in order to open or close it. So this allows you to control access because your settlers aren't going to have the ability to flip these switches in their artificial intelligence capabilities. So you can always lock down access to your building using the XOR logic gate because your settlers just cannot cope with that block of pathing. So this is the first time I've used it, and like I said, this got really messed up for some reason. There, that should hopefully fix it. There we go. All right. So the Overseer Suite is a little similar, but there's also some pretty significant differences as well. So we still have kind of the TV living room area here, complete with boom boxes, radios, etc. We do have some floor decoration like these Nuka-Cola rugs, and we've kind of moved our trophies around the suite before they were all right here along this wall. So I got rid of some of the dumber ones like the Brahmin and like the insects for the most part, but I kept a lot of the more dangerous ones. So things like your Mirelurk King, your Mutant Hounds, your Mirelurk Queens, Deathclaws, etc. So I kept a lot of the cooler looking trophies, got rid of some of the unnecessary ones that I just don't like, and moved them around. But we got rid of the power armor sitting right in the middle of the living room. That got transitioned to our personal collection room, which I will go into in a little bit. So moving down this side, we do have our bedrooms. So we do have our son, Sean, who lives here. So Sean's bedroom is pretty much identical to how it was before when I added Sean's bedroom. So he does have this wraparound desk for doing his tinkering. He does like to disassemble and assemble stuff quite a bit. If you didn't know, he will ask you for stuff from time to time. And if you provide him enough of these random junk items, he will produce for you a Wazer rifle. So the Wazer rifle is kind of, if I remember correctly, it's basically just a copy and paste of the Limitless Potential laser rifle. But if you haven't found that and you're just looking for a laser rifle with unlimited ammo capacity, then Sean is the source of that as well. So I kind of tried to decorate that the way that a 10-year-old boy would decorate his room. My bedroom is pretty much the same as it was before. I did switch the bench to a wraparound bench as well, so that this way I can disassemble rifles or write letters as such. I also went with a Creation Club style bed, which is, it does the exact same thing as the Vault 88 beds. It's just a different color blanket and it has a couple pillows. So don't freak out. I'm not getting any additional benefit. It's just a little bit of aesthetic difference. We do have our trunk where I keep a bunch of weapons that I have no intention of ever using, but they are unique. I have a locker where I keep a bunch of outfits that I have no intention of ever using, but they are unique. And then I have a dresser where I tend to keep a bunch of weapons and stuff I intend to use for the settlement size expansion. I don't even know if you would call it. Some people call it a glitch. Some people call it an exploit. Other people call it a feature. I tend to fall into the feature field where if you store a bunch of weapons or other objects using the workshop, it will expand the build limit for a settlement. It is designed that way. So I do not consider that an exploit. I consider that using a feature the way it was intended to do in a manner that it probably wasn't quite intended to do. So in here we do have our bathroom, which is a toilet, a sink, but we also have our personal private shower as well. So we don't have to go down to the gym to take a private shower. We have one here in our overseer suite. So moving around here, we have our dining room and kitchen. So we didn't have a private kitchen before. All we really had was a private dining table. So we still had to go down to the main deck in order to get any food and bring it back up here. Now we have a personal kitchen. So again, we have this refrigerator instead of an ice machine. We do have the cooking stove. We have a sink. And we do have a private bar with some stools pulled up. And we do have our own garbage can. So we kind of have this nice private dining room slash kitchen. It does still feel very sparsely decorated, but honestly, this was a last minute addition just to kind of clear out some negative space once again. So moving down here, we do have access to one of our personal catwalks. So this is the same story as the ones before. We have a personal catwalk on the overseer's deck, which goes all the way around the tower. So we can come out and look at whatever we want, whenever we want to. So stepping in here, we have Curie's private laboratory. So Curie is not a security specialist. She was serving as our chief of security, and that was primarily just to keep her close to our bed so that when we went to sleep, we would get the Lover's Embrace perk. However, that's not exactly what she would like to do. She is a scientist, so I gave her her own laboratory. So we've got some various chemistry station. We have lots of scientific equipment. We have a private terminal with some Nixie tubes, and we even have this spinny glowy thing to work with. So I know it's a beta wave emitter. I just like calling it a spinny glowy thing. So she also has a number of plants. I don't want to talk to you. All right, so she also has a fair number of plants that she can look at. And she is sitting once again at a security station, but that's just because this will keep her close and inside her laboratory at any given time. So then, even though in game, she's still serving as a security officer, in universe, she's sitting in her laboratory all day playing around with super sciencey stuff. So I kind of like how that turned out. It gives Curie kind of her own personal space to call her own. So moving over here, we have my personal workshop. So this is pretty much everything that was in the workshop before. So a cooking station, a Nuka-Cola mixing station, chemistry, armor, weapons, and power armor. I did throw in a couple extra power armor racks so that now, before all of our suits of power armor that we were working on piecing together, were sitting right in the middle of our living room. Now they can actually be staged here in the workshop. So then that way, as I piece together new suits, I can move them out. I can go purchase an empty frame from someone like the Atom Cats or Arturo Rodriguez in Diamond City. And then I can move it here and start piecing together another suit as I go along. So this is a nice power armor staging ground for suits that I'm currently in process of building. So I also just threw in a cooking station, even though there's one literally right across the hall in the kitchen. This just kind of gives me a one-stop shop for any crafting that I'm going to do. I like to just come in every once in a while and grind up a few levels to construct a whole bunch of food items or a whole bunch of chems, which once you're level 160, you're not going to level up that much. But what it does do is gives you a lot of stuff that you can trade in exchange for building materials, like tons and tons of concrete. So hint, hint, that's how I get all my concrete. All right. So now stepping across here to our personal collection room. So this is quite a bit larger than our last one, but that's because we are including our power armor in the personal collection room. So this is kind of a nice way to sequester our collections off, where we don't have the super pretentious power armor collection in the middle of our living room for all to gawk at. So stepping around the room, we do have our library. So we do have just a number of different documents and junk we tend to accumulate throughout the game. So as the stuff becomes no longer essential for doing quests, I just throw it all in these file cabinets. We do have every magazine in the game. Don't know why magazine escaped me. So we do have every magazine in the game. We also have our own private arcade if we want to play video games. We don't have to go away. We do not have to go down to the arcade. We also have some of our more unique suits. So we've got the Nuka Girl suit, the General of the Minutemen, the Silver Shroud, and we have Arthur Maxon's clothing as well. So you can probably guess he's no longer among us. Along this wall, we have our weapons collections. So some of our more unique heavy weapons, such as Aternus, the unlimited capacity Gatling laser that fires blue lasers instead of red. We have Ashmaker, we have the Defender's harpoon gun, we've got Junk Jet, we've got the Broadsider, and then we have Final Judgment, which I believe is Arthur Maxon's Gatling laser as well. We also have a fair number of different weapons along this wall. So we have things like Adam's Judgment. We've just got a Disciple's Cutlass. Anything that looked cool, I threw up here. We do have some Creation Club stuff like the Nuclear Steel Sword, which is just basically the Skyrim Steel Sword. We have some of your more unique weapons. Again, there's a couple Creation Club things here like the Anti-Material Rifle and the prototype gauze rifle, which this thing, in my personal opinion, sucks. Don't bother wasting money on it. If you get it for free like I did, then no skin off my hide, but honestly, I would not dump money into this thing. It is just a reskinned laser musket. So, some additional Neato Burrito weapons of different types. These are pretty much any weapon I would actually use for any reason. Or more unique looking ones. So I tend to use this one quite a bit. And I also will sometimes play around with the recon rifle, various different weapons that are pretty much maxed out. So along this wall, we also have things like the salvaged Assaultron head, our alien blasters, a Deathclaw gauntlet, the Western revolver, which for some reason is open, the Deliverer, etc. So here we have a lot of our different collections of various items. So we have our different styles of styles, our different flavors of Nuka-Cola. So this is every flavor of Nuka-Cola in the entire game. We have all of the basic flavors, plus the ones added by the Nuka-Cola DLC, and all of the mixes that you can make as well. We also have every flavor of Vim, so we have all those. We have every robot models kit, so we have all of the real robot models, like the SentryBot, the Mr. Gutsy, the Protectron, but we also have the mix and match ones, like the Protectron SentryBot, the SentryBot Mr. Handy, etc. So that should be every robot model in the game. There is no RoboBrain model provided, and these do use the Fallout 3 texture packs. So that took me an embarrassingly long time to realize that these weren't even using the Fallout 4 models for the various robots. So we do have our bobbleheads. We have every bobblehead in the base game. So this rack is not available in game. It's a Creation Club item, but there are bobblehead racks available in game. They're just freestanding instead of wall mounted. And we do have these cross promotional things, which are also Creation Club. So don't worry about finding the Nuka-Cola bobbleheads. You won't ever find them unless you have the Nuka-Cola Collector's Creation Club stuff. So with that, now it's time to look at some of our power armor. So we do have the Overboss Raider armor from the Nuka World DLC. And along this side, we have every variety of in-game power armor. So some of these will contain unique sets, like the Raider power armor that contains Tessa's Fist. We have like the piezonucleic power armor chest on our T-51. So we have complete sets where possible, but any unique sets that wouldn't fit better on something else went here. So these are all maxed out all the way up to F level, or if you're looking at the X01, the Mark 6 level. They are using Patriotic Paint, which once again, Creation Club item, got it for free.
Stop beating that dead horse!
I won't beat that dead horse anymore. Over here we have our more unique sets of in-game power armor. So we have our two Vim flavors from the Far Harbor DLC, so Vim and Vim Refresh. We also have this Tesla T60 suit from the Automatron DLC. So the torso and the left and right arms both have these Tesla coils on them. But I also included, since this has so much unique stuff, things like Honor and I think Vengeance as well. On this suit as well. I even threw in a jetpack to make it uber science-y. We also have our Nuka-Cola T-51 and our Nuka-Cola Quantum X01 power armor as well. So all of our unique sets of power armor, all of our in-game vanilla power armor, all available here. And I was able to place this just right to where if you want to climb into any of these, you have this nice corridor in the back so that you can climb in, set them, and take off. And then when you come to park, you just walk back through here, park it in your bay, exit, and then you can get back out. So I like how that turned out. Took a little bit of time to get the placement just right, but honestly, absolutely love it. So that is my personal collections room for the Overseer Suite as it has been remodeled. And so that is it for the Overseer Suite. So quite a bit better than what we had before. All right. And so now we are up at our sky deck here at nighttime. So we can kind of see all of these nice street lamps. Geez, I don't know why that word was so hard to say. I must be half asleep still. So the sky deck has seen a pretty significant remodel from before. So the first thing is the greenhouse. So we used to just have a rooftop garden, and I have since switched to using greenhouses. So an in-universe explanation is this would increase our growing season, and it would also protect our crops from radioactive or acid rain. So having these really would improve the quality of food that we produce and how long we're able to produce it. So I went with a greenhouse. I threw in a lot of this fluorescent lighting as kind of grow lighting. And I also threw in a lot of this electrical conduit to serve as a sprinkler system. So it looks just like a sprinkler system if you don't look too closely and don't know that it's conduit. So I really love this aesthetic. I use it pretty much in all of my builds now. So we do have pretty much every crop in the game. We have corn, we have carrots, mute fruit, razor grain, we have melons and gourds, we have potatoes. So anything that you can grow for food, we do grow for food here. So moving over here, we added a rooftop bar. So we added the steel beach bar. And so this is kind of more tiki bar setup. So instead of the Vault-Tec store counter, we instead went with a booth. We also added in things like the Nuka World mobile drink station. We added in a grill for cooking instead of the normal stove. We also threw in things like the ice machine. So this is the ice machine I was talking about that basically will give us the in-universe explanation in comparison to the refrigerator, which is Creation Club. So this is kind of vanilla. This is Creation Club. Oh, hey, it actually spawned with junk in it. I'll take that. All right, so we have our various seating styles with our various palm fronds. So that is our Steel Beach bar and grill. So the artillery station is exactly the same as it was before. It's just a little bit more compact. So we still have our 4 artillery pieces, each pointing a different direction. And we do still have our firework mortars, which are good to go if we ever want to do a fireworks show. So the artillery battery is almost identical to how it was before. Now this is a rooftop auditorium / stage. So this way, if the overseer needs to address the entire settlement, or if we want to have things like outdoor plays, etc., then we have that option here now. So I kind of got the inspiration from the stage that they have set up at Diamond City. I honestly had never seen it before, but on your first visit to Diamond City, if you go to the back of the stadium, Mayor McDonough will stand on this raised stage and address the entire settlement. So I kind of got the idea from that. So I added some outdoor seating. I added the stage, which is a little bit elevated. I honestly would go a little bit lower if I had the option, but this is about the lowest you can make a raised platform, and have various different sources of lighting. So you can stand in here, address the people, and you are fairly well lit. You're also pretty well enclosed. And I did throw up some of these shades, so you do have some protection against the sun or even rain. So I really like how that turned out as well. And so that is our sky deck. And with that, that is our Starlight Drive-in as it has been completely remodeled. I absolutely love how this build turned out. It's been a long time in coming, and there's been so much user feedback on my Starlight Drive-in Tower since I started this channel a year ago. Let us know what you think of our remodel in the comments below. Do you feel like we made an improvement, or do you feel like we ruined a lot of the minimalist aesthetic that we had worked so hard to achieve? With all that, I think I'm ready to wrap up. Thank you all so much for a wonderful first year on this channel, and I hope to see you all here next time on future installments of Settlement Builds for Noobs. Stay safe, and I'll see you all here later.